This last year, we created over 7 podcasts.
8.
Yes, 8 podcasts called Speaking Of, here at the University of St. Francis, to much acclaim and widespread viewership. And it's not just my family this time. It's extraordinary how far we've come. You see, when we first started, it was just an idea, talking to individuals here at the university who gave back to the students their individual goals, the things they found their passions. Today, we're going to show you all behind the scenes efforts, how we make this thing work, the perfection that you witness. But sometimes our ideas are wrought with failure. It has been a very perilous journey, fraught with pitfalls, mistakes. We are human after all. Today you're going to see some behind the scenes and how we actually make this work of art, the perfection that you see. As the great bard had once written, all the world is a stage. That is no different than today. Welcome to Anatomy of a Podcast. Hello, my name is Eric Petty. I'm the host of Speaking Of. It's a podcast here at the University of St. Francis, extremely popular and quite well produced, if I might add. You see, at the very beginning of this, we decided to do something a little bit different with our podcast than the other ones that are out there, all 8 million or give or take. We want to do a 3-camera setup. I want to show you a little bit about that today. Now, in order to have the cameras work, we got to have some lights. Now, right now we just have the one light on me, but what if I put a whole bunch of lights up here? Oh, that's a lot better. Little Veruca salt for you if you want. I like this. Makes me look even better, but it gives also depth. That's how we do things. Join me in camera 2. This is camera 2. This is my camera. It's what makes me look real pretty. I got an orange light, I got a purple light. It's fantastic. You gotta have it on me because I'm the center of attention all the time. If only that were true. It's not all about me though, folks. Just ask my wife. You see over here, if you join me, this is where our camera is for our guests. Let's get a spotlight, put a spotlight right here. Put one right, get one right here. Okay, we can put it up a little bit, but I'll meet you halfway. See, sometimes productions go haywire. Actually, you know what? Every single time we've done one of these, this has gone haywire. We try to have some great ideas, but you know what? They don't always work, and we have to work through them to find the best possible way. This is camera 3. This is for our guests. These are for individuals that want to come in and talk about their passions. What makes them so great here at the University of St. Francis? Sometimes they wrote a book. Sometimes they just like books. Sometimes they're going to talk about, well, anything they want to talk about. That's what this podcast is all about. You guys, what you want to talk about. Meet me back in the middle. This is the middle main camera. It's all about context. You see, because if I can put you right here in the middle, I can show that you're left or right and put things behind you. I can put the clock tower over there. I can put the mansion in the background. I can do a lot of different things here if I want. It's fantastic. But having 3 cameras to choose from at any given time gives us a whole lot of different views. But that's just all smoke and mirrors, folks. What about the story? So how do we get our guests on the show? Well, they're chomping at the bit, quite honestly, to get on here. They just are lining up. I think we got 30 or 40 people out there right now as we're filming this. They want to be on this because it's such an integral part of the University of St. Francis. The community, the people, the traditions. That's what we do here. We make podcasts that connect people. And we get individuals on here, we got to try to think, like for example, Dr. Ron Lewis. Come on, Dr. Ron Lewis, it's just a podcast. Hey, you can wear your green jacket. Pure professionalism. Even Chelsea McCorkle, one of my favorites.
Hey, Chelsea. Hey, this is the podcast.
It's going to be called the elevator conversation. So I can talk to you the whole time we're in the elevator, whatever.
It's full. It's full.
Hey, it doesn't look full to me. Hey, hey, I'll see you later, and we can.
Aching to be on here, quite honestly. But in all candor, we reach out to everybody because we think they have a unique idea, unique voice and passion, something that they want to talk about, something that will hopefully connect with the viewers and the school ultimately. That's important to us when we're creating this podcast. But here's the thing, that's the guest. But I said before, I wanted to do something a little bit different. We call it the walk and talk. Now, here's some original footage from the first thing we ever did. In 1867, a man named Ernest Fry needed a novel approach to attach a piece of paper to clothing. Well, that gave us a very simple invention of just a piece of metal wrapped around itself. But he was also known for a couple other things. The first was that he was a notorious cat burglar. He can get in and out of places that only an emaciated cat or a 1980s supermodel could get in and out of. He was also known to be quite the womanizer, but he stole as many hearts as he did property. But the second thing he was really known for is that he had extremely demure and lithe forearms, wrists, and hands, so that there was no handcuffs that could restrain him. And for the longest time, even though he was caught, he was never imprisoned. Until about the age of 25, when he had an unfortunate growth spurt of his wrists, forearms, and hands, thus rendering him unable to escape those handcuffs. And it wasn't until sitting in a jail cell that he noticed his little invention came in pretty handy, and he was able to escape. That's where the invention of the paperclip comes in. It's over at Ackett's Hall. Pretty good. It was really long, but not bad for a first try. Then we tried to do some other ideas. Most of the time, John and I sit down and say, what do you got for this? We've talked to an individual, because we do it after the fact. We don't do it way ahead of time. What fits? What makes sense here? In this case, wait, I think I have an idea. It's all about inspiration. I have an idea is kind of the mantra we work with nowadays. In this case, we're going to show you what we came up with on Chelsea McCorkle's podcast. It was pretty awesome. Check it out.
Yeah, but I think, so because this is a passion of mine, like just trying to understand like what makes a villain, what makes a hero, I've brought it into my writing classrooms, and my students really respond to it. So we talk about the role of audience, right? You write in your free time. So you know, like if I'm writing to audience A or audience B, I'm going to write differently if I'm thinking about writing, right? So I give them one of these clear-cut villains, normally from Disney, because it's something they can access easily from their childhood.
Okay.
And I give them a new audience. So your audience is no longer a kid in the 90s. Your audience is a modern 25-year-old who wants to feel empathy. So I give them the motivation. So you
almost
have to,
like a young adult read kind of thing.
So you need to reimagine this scene with this villain and rewrite it.
So what do they add or take away then from the original narrative? What's different?
Is that the story and the characters remain the same, but the way they're writing it has to change fully when the audience changes.
How so? Give me an example of something.
So like if they're writing to that, well, they're given the original version, right? Because it's normally the 90s Disney version of a villain. And that was for, like we talked about earlier, that kid who needs to understand this is a villain and they need to understand that quick, right? So like Cruella de Vil.
The hair alone.
there was a movie that was redone, so I have to take her off my list now, giving that villain empathy, proving my point that a modern audience wants the more complicated gray villain. But they have the original. Now, how do you retell that? So before this movie came out, I had a student kind of reimagine Cruella de Vil's childhood and kind of explain why she is the way she is.
What did they add in there that would have said, okay, I get it. This is why, this is their testimony. This is everything why they're doing everything in the future. What did they add?
One example comes to mind. I've taught this probably the last 5 years in classrooms, and it's just it's like a mini activity just to understand the role of audience. But one thing that comes to mind is, well, if we think of Cruella de Vil and we add in the picture of mental illness, right, that changes how I feel about that character. And does that appeal more to this new audience I'm trying to appeal to?
Chelsea McCorkle is a big friend of the show. She's been a real good sport with a lot of things we come up with, and she actually helped us out a couple of different times. And was the first guest that we had, the first one we ever created. It was fantastic. We had a lot of fun with it. See, the original idea was going to be fairly simple. It was called the Elevator Conversations, and my original idea was that we were going to shoot an entire podcast inside of an elevator. What's that all about? I don't know. I'm not even sure how we could make that feasibly work. This isn't an M. Night Shyamalan movie. This is just something simple with two people talking, but I don't know how we would have gotten away from everybody coming in and out, and it just didn't work. Instead, we had something a little bit more simple. We were going to sit down and have more of a conversation like, hey, Chelsea, how you doing? Oh, great, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. Then after a while, we settled on something a little bit more in depth, hardcore, rapid fire, crossfire kind of thing. Take a look, folks.
And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for.
All right. Chelsea K. McCorkle. For tenure at the University of St. Francis, you have to answer one simple question. What is President Lance Ritchie's middle name?
Do you even know the answer to that?
Don't worry about that part. Just answer the question, lady. You have 5 seconds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. It's a half-hour show. I'm going to need your answer for tenure.
For tenure?
For tenure.
And promotion?
Not promotion, I didn't say that.
Okay.
Give me a name.
Lancelot.
All right. I have no idea. All right. Thanks for coming, though. Yeah, I don't know if she got tenure or not, but I really don't know Dr. Lance Ritchie's middle name either. I don't think it's important. But we still had a lot of fun making the podcast after that. You see, it's the walk and talk is next. This part is critically important. What do we want to do? Because Chelsea's going to talk about in her podcast, if you've seen it, I know you have, with billions of views, it's certain. She wanted to talk about villains in literature. It was a lot of fun. So John and I sat down and said, all right, dude.
All right.
Listen up.
I'm listening.
We just got done doing Chelsea McCorkle's podcast.
Yep, still listening.
We need something awesome for the walk and talk.
Because we're so awesome.
It's so awesome, and so is she.
Right.
It was fantastic.
Right.
So I got some ideas for the walk and talk. I'm going to share them with you. Ready?
Okay.
Let's just
There we go.
workshop this idea.
Hurry up.
Right, here we go. Feet.
No.
Hands.
No.
Ears.
No.
How about any other body part we're talking about? No body parts. Absolutely not. Live action remake of Cars.
Copyrighted.
Baywatch.
Still copyrighted.
Is it really?
Yes.
I'd like to remake a Baywatch, quite honestly.
I'm sure you would. It'd be cool, right?
UFO, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot?
Nope.
No?
Still copyright.
Shawshank Redemption?
Still copyrighted.
Master and Commander Far Side of the World?
Still copyrighted.
Okay, you're poo-pooing a lot of ideas. Quite honestly, that's what I have Will Wells for. He's a master poo-pooer, as we all know.
Sure.
So, what ideas do you got?
ASMR.
ASMR is your idea. Right.
That's my idea.
What does that stand for?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Okay. Well, that doesn't help us out if we don't even know what we're talking about going into something.
I suppose that's true.
Okay, so wait a minute. I got an idea. Just came to me. Let me workshop this
Okay,
idea. I'm
here
going
we
to throw it
go.
out. You ready?
Hurry up.
Hannibal Lecter in prison.
Let's try it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Here we go. I am a villain. Whoa. Yeah. That didn't quite work out right.
Not at all.
Intense.
You've never been scarier.
I was very scary.
That's true.
Maybe it was the fact that we shot downtown at the History Museum at the jail had something to do with it.
Very well could be.
Wow. Intense. Can't use that.
Right.
We got to do something a little bit different, but I still like... Wait.
Okay. Here we go.
Let me throw some ideas
right.
past you.
Hurry
Ready?
up.
Here we go. How about Hannibal Lecter as a librarian?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Do not ring the bell, please. One moment. Fascinating. Twist ending. Who knew? I'm glad you came by. I've been wanting to talk with you all day. You see, I am a villain. This is a girl's small t-shirt. You can tell I am a villain because I have my hair slicked back. I defy you to find anyone with a hair slicked back that's not a villain, Pat Riley included. You see, there are only two types of villains. There are those that you love. Take Tom Hanks, two-time Academy Award winner, and his portrayal of that hitman in Road to Perdition. Just something I like about him. Character's despicable and all, but perhaps it's just Tom Hanks. Or take Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, the best comic book adaptation, I say. His portrayal as the Joker is quite extraordinary, super psychotic and super restrained. Awesome, awe-inspiring in many ways. But then again, his hair isn't necessarily slicked back, but it is green. It's a conundrum for me. But then again, there are ones that you, I dare say, hate. Somebody like Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator. I really can't stand that guy. He's just terrible. I always wondered what that did to his movie career because he's so despicable. I just don't know. I'll talk to him this weekend, I think, when we go camping. Perhaps somebody else like that tyrant god, Byron Hadley, in The Shawshank Redemption. He's awful. He's terrible and maniacal in every way you can think of. Do you know he was also the voice of Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob SquarePants? Nobody ever believes me when I tell them that, but it's quite true. You can look it up if you wish. Wikipedia does not lie. He was also in Highlander with Christopher Lambert, that pre-Tarzan Legend of Greystoke. It's perhaps too deep of a cut here. Speaking of villains, we have on the podcast today Chelsea McCorkle. I'm sure that's some sort of a typo. She's going to be talking about some very interesting things, children literature, villains, and such. Stay tuned, folks. Now, where are those fava beans? Well, most importantly, what are fava beans? And here we are, folks, back to where this whole thing started at Ackett's Hall here at the University of St. Francis in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So this was the original idea, is to walk and talk into the camera and introduce whoever we're going to be talking about with the podcast, but it evolved into something a little bit stranger, just like the Hannibal Lecter as a librarian skit you saw in this whole podcast. It's been a lot of fun, But quite honestly, this may not have worked all the time, as our Associate Vice President, Trish Bukowski, had told me one time, you know what, it's a really good imitation of William Shatner. Well, no greater compliment can I receive, quite honestly, and I love that, being a Star Trek fan and all. But this couldn't be a podcast without our guests, and we had some fantastic ones this year. We had Dr. Mario Baldessari, Chelsea McCorkle, who you've seen, Dr. Lou Weber, Miles Fullwider, Tony Didier, Mike McCaffrey, and don't forget Antoinette Francher Donald. If I've left anybody out, my apologies. But this isn't all possible without some production people, including the Wizard. John, come here for a second. This here's John Sellers. You don't get to see him too often. I reference him a lot or whatever. He's the guy who makes this thing happen all the time. All the lighting, the camera tricks. If you want to see something really cool, watch the Dr. Lou Weber Matrix one where he does green screen or whatever. He's the wizard. Now get out of my shot. Also, Atlas Spillers is another one. He showed us something about editing this year that knocked our time down to a third of what it used to be on editing. And Evan Booge, who is just a theatrical lighting genius and extremely patient, as all these individuals are, especially with me. Shakespeare had written one time, "The world is a stage." And we're just playing in it right now, folks. We hope you enjoyed the podcast this year. Next season, we got some new things coming up, new guests, new opportunities, and if you want to be one, get a hold of me. Here's my email down here. Check it out. Get a hold of me. I'd love to have you on the show, or at least we can talk about it. We hope you enjoyed this special episode of Speaking of, Anatomy of a Podcast. We'll see you next season, folks.